This is Part 2, Episode 10. Bei Bei shook his head and said, I don't know, either. I heard Elder Nan Shui mention that Hu Yuhao had some important matters to attend to. He will return after he settles them. He should be able to guess that the soul beasts from the Great Star Do Forest are going to retaliate. Considering his intelligence, I'm sure he'll rush back as soon as possible, even though he's affected by Chio's death. I believe that he has some kind of way to help us deal with this beast wave. Dean Yang, the Tang sect can't shirk responsibility for this matter. We are willing to use whatever strength we have to help the Academy resist this beast wave. I just hope that you can put in a few good words for us to Elder Xian. This wasn't what Hu Yuhao wished for. He has also been greatly affected, and he was also the passive one, too. This. Yang Xiaozhe suddenly raised his hand to interrupt Bei Bei, stopping him from continuing further. What's the point of saying all that now? Let's force this beast wave back first. Furthermore, did I say that I'm blaming Yuhao? This can only be considered an opportunity for him. Why would we blame him for something like this? He's already very blessed, and has now obtained the strength of the God Beast of Destiny. He's bound to grow even faster. We still can't tell whether this is a good thing or a bad thing for the Academy. Let's wait until he's back. In addition, do you really think Di Qian would remain quiet, even without this thing as a trigger? The abilities of the soul beasts in the Great Star Do Forest have been increasing significantly over these past few centuries. The number of 100,000-year soul beasts has been increasing, and their overall abilities have reached a new high. The Golden Eyes Black Dragon King is a rogue. In fact, the Academy had already guessed that he wouldn't choose to remain quiet for long. The death of the Emperor Beast has only accelerated this process. The death of the Emperor Beast has also greatly restricted any future enhancements to the Great Star Do Forest. This is not a bad thing for humans. Right now, let's see how we deal with this crisis. Bei Bei was much more relieved after listening to Yang Xiaozhe's words. Dean Yang's attitude basically represented that of the Academy. As long as they didn't blame Hu Yuhao for bringing about this calamity, Bei Bei was satisfied. Bei Bei straightened his gaze and asked, Dean Yang, what do you need us to do now? Yang Xiaozhe replied, I don't need all of you to fight yet. Didn't you say that you wanted to gather the Tang sect's strength to help the Academy? In that case, I'll need you and your sect to bring out all the soul tools you have. The Tang sect will be in charge of the deployment of its soul tools. Coordinate with Shixing regarding this. Yes. Bei Bei quickly agreed, and immediately turned around before gesturing to his comrades. Shu Sansha and the others had also heard what had happened to Hu Yuhao. They were also very worried about the Academy's opinion. Right now, they felt more relieved after seeing Bei Bei's expression. From Bei Bei's face, it seemed like the Academy didn't have any opinion on Hu Yuhao just yet. Let's go and gather all the soul tools in the sect. Take out all our sealed milk bottles and the various soul tools that we've just invented, Bei Bei instructed them. Hu Yuhao was important to Shrek Academy, but he was also equally important to the Tang sect. He was everyone's little junior, and had contributed greatly to the development of the sect. At this critical moment, Bei Bei only wanted to do one thing as the eldest senior of the Tang sect: contribute as much as he and the Tang sect could to stop this beast wave, and make amends for Hu Yuhao's mistake. The battle had well and truly begun. The Soul Beast army didn't stop their attack even though they had suffered heavy casualties. On the contrary, their attacks became even more ferocious. Shixing was holding the fort at the center of the southern city wall, issuing orders continuously. After firing the Zhuge divine crossbow cannons again, he had no choice but to let the cannons cool down for some time. Huge numbers of soul beasts started to scale the city walls again, and the long-range attacks that came from the soul beasts had also become stronger. Shixing immediately changed their fighting strategy in response to all this. Activate our protective soul barriers and release the shock bombs. The soul masters, who were the furthest back, were each carrying a metal pole in front of them. They quickly pressed their palms against their poles and poured in their soul power. Suddenly, a green barrier quickly rose over Shrek City, forming a strong isolation barrier. The soul beasts that were about to reach the top of the city walls suddenly realized that they weren't able to grab hold of anything with their sharp claws, and immediately slid back down the walls. The long-range attacks that hit the barrier were immediately dispelled. A hole suddenly opened at an inconspicuous spot on the south city wall. Balls of silver light instantly spread out from it. Intense shockwaves started to surge outwards, and all the soul beasts that were climbing the city walls were engulfed in a net formed by these balls of silver light. Their bodies started to shine with silver light as they fell off the city walls. Falling off the city wall wasn't fatal for these soul beasts, considering how tough their bodies were. The shockwaves only temporarily stopped them, too. However, they crashed into the soul beasts underneath them as they fell off the city walls. The pulse that came from the shock bombs could be passed on. Suddenly, a huge number of soul beasts beneath the city started to gather together, and they were all affected by the shock bombs, causing them to temporarily lose their offensive abilities. Throw! Shishing shouted with an emotionless look on his face. Balls of fire were then rapidly thrown into the air by ordinary soldiers. These fireballs weren't ordinary, though. They were mixed with some medicine using special formulas to increase their combustion effect and viscosity. Incendiary bombs. They were specially invented by Shrek Academy, and were only used for defending the city. Most importantly, they just needed to be ignited before use, and would explode the moment they contacted something else. After exploding, they would turn certain regions into seas of fire, and these fires would continue to burn for a long time. Most soul beasts were afraid of fire. Even though these flames weren't enough to kill them, their instinctive fear would still cause them to panic. These incendiary bombs could also be used by ordinary soldiers. In an instant, countless incendiary bombs were thrown down from the city wall, creating a huge sea of fire. The soul beasts that were gathered beneath the city wall started to roar wildly. They struggled in this sea of fire, and didn't even care when they hurt other soul beasts. The rest of the soul beasts charging from behind couldn't help but be deterred by the extremely high temperature. While Shrek City wasn't as large as Radiant City, and didn't have a soul engineering legion, they had the most outstanding soul masters in the entire continent, and possessed an army with the greatest fighting strength. When the incendiary bombs landed, Elder Song's attacking intensity increased. While she was encircled by several 100,000-year soul beasts, she still managed to pester by G enough that she was unable to use her area of effect healing type soul skill. These soul beasts' long-range attacks weren't weak, but it was a pity that there were too many types of soul beasts in the Great Star Doe Forest, and they hardly lived together as a species. Under such circumstances, they weren't able to coordinate with one another. Even the long-range attacks by the 100,000-year soul beasts weren't able to cause too much damage to the protective soul barrier on the city wall, as they didn't coordinate and strike at the same time. Shrek Academy was still waiting, while adopting a strict formation. Their current advantage didn't mean anything. The beast wave that was coming still seemed to be endless. Furthermore, the truly strong soul beasts from the Great Star Doe Forest had yet to enter the fight. The soul beasts continued to charge maniacally towards the city, while the Shrek City Defense Army continued to defend the city resolutely. The fight had entered a stalemate. The soul beasts were using their lives to drain Shrek City's resources. The Zhuge divine crossbow cannons had limited lifespans. Even with sufficient time to cool down, their internal formation arrays would still be damaged after they were fired a set number of times. Stationary soul cannon shells had yet to be utilized. They were Shrek's trump card. Those from the Tang sect were the busiest right now. They received the help of a 500-man team assigned to them by Shishing. A huge amount of resources were being transported from the Tang sect to the southern city wall right now. After the fight had gone on for an hour, Shishing saw a pile of stationary soul cannon shells behind him, and finally smiled for the first time since the fight had started. The Tang sect has a strong foundation, and they are willing to offer everything for us to use. I heard that they only grew to this scale because of the Academy's support. The Academy definitely made a worthwhile investment. The soul beasts had attacked for some time, but they weren't able to reach the top of the city wall, as they were suppressed by soul tools. The beast wave continued to surge strongly, but Shrek remained resolute. No matter how ferocious these soul beasts were, they still managed to resist them. However, Elder Song seemed as if she was unable to hold on anymore. No one from Shrek went to reinforce Elder Song, including the martial god Doluor Xianlina, who was Elder Song's biological daughter. It was because no one could match her speed. With Elder Song's cultivation, she could leave the battlefield anytime she wanted to. However, she couldn't last forever. Once a person was locked on by too many soul beasts, they would find it very difficult to escape. Green light flashed, and that dazzling green ray appeared in the sky again. Elder Song had returned to the top of the city walls and revealed her form. She looked as if she was fine. However, on closer observation, it was evident that she was slightly out of breath. The moment Elder Song left the battlefield, Bai Ji's mass healing immediately took effect. A huge patch of azure light engulfed the front portion of the beast wave, and greatly reduced the losses that the soul beast army incurred. The soul rays from the top of the city walls were still firing strongly, and temporarily suppressed the beast wave. The shock bombs weren't used very often, only when the soul beasts were near the top of the city walls. Elder Song was also shocked when she saw the huge number of stationary soul cannons that were massed at the top of the city walls, and asked Shishing, "Did the academy prepare all these?" Shishing laughed softly, and shook his head. He said, "No, they were sent here by the Tang sect." Elder Song looked at Bei Bei from the corner of her eyes. While she felt that something was amiss, she did not probe further. This was not the time for her to pursue the matter. Xianlina, the Valkyrie Doluor, asked in a low voice, "Mom, are you all right?" Elder Song shook her head and said, "This Emerald Swan is powerful, indeed. With her pure auxiliary abilities, my attacks are unable to hurt her. In terms of cultivation, she is more powerful than me. She's almost as powerful as an ultimate Doluor. With her present, the beast tide's strength is almost tripled. It's a shame that there's no way for me to ambush and kill her." Xianlina asked, "Do you know how long Elder Xian and Elder Mu can trap the Di Qian?" Elder Song shook her head and said, "I don't know. Only the masters of the Sea God's Pavilion know the secrets of the Golden Tree. However, with the immense power stored in the Golden Tree, it won't be hard for it to seal Di Qian for at least 3 days. This means that in these 3 days, we have to either push the beast tide back, or hope that rescue will come soon. Have we sent out the distress calls?" Xianlina nodded and said, "We have sent out distress calls to the 3 empires already. The beast tide came too suddenly. Furthermore, the 3 empires are focusing their strength on fighting the Sun-Moon Empire. Their armies are all massed there, so it will be hard for help to come quickly. This time, we're really in a pickle. Right now, the situation is fine for now, but once the soul tools have been completely depleted and this fight comes to close quarters, we'll be in serious trouble." Elder Song sighed and said, "The only thing we can do is press on and wait for reinforcements. The launch of a beast tide by the Great Star Do Forest should not be our business. However, if Shrek City is overrun, chaos and destruction will reign. While it's important to fight the Sun-Moon Empire, internal stability is important, too. The damage caused by such a huge beast tide is not something that the 3 empires can bear. With the position of the Great Star Do Forest, no one knows where the beast tide will surge next. I believe that the 3 empires will make their own decisions. The only problem now is the timing of the reinforcements. I hope that in the next 3 days, the first wave of reinforcements will be able to arrive." Xianlina said, "I hope so, too. The savage beasts are sly, indeed. Among the 5 of them, other than the beast god Di Qian and this Emerald Swan, the other 3 cannot be found. They did not send out any high-level soul beasts. Evidently, they are using the ordinary soul beasts to weaken us, and saving their strength while waiting for a better opportunity." Elder Song said in a low voice, "We must conserve our strength. Once the powerful soul beasts join the fray, we'll face even more pressure. Please have 2 of the members of the Sea God's Pavilion stay behind. The rest can go to the barracks to rest. Stay alert. Since they don't want to send out their best, we'll send titled Doluor out to fight once every hour. They can meditate afterwards to replenish their soul power. Each time, we'll send out 4 titled Doluor. The rest will rest when they're not on shift. Don't they want to play a game of attrition? They're eating away at our foundations, while we'll be eating away at the lives of their soul beasts. I want to see who'll give up first. We from Shrek Academy have a 10,000-year-old foundation, something they can't defeat so easily. Yes, Xian Lina replied, and went to make the arrangements. In the absence of Elder Xian, Elder Song's rank was the highest. However, she would not command the troops personally. Instead, she would be commanding the powerhouses and experts participating in the battle. The moment Elder Song issued her orders, the first one to carry them was Shishing, the city defense officer of Shrek City. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. The clear sound of a stopwatch was audible. A huge silver plate hung suspended in mid-air. It only had a second hand, which moved slowly. Every soul beast that was within 250 meters of Shrek City's city walls started to slow down. Despite the Emerald Swan's healing and support, they continued to move sluggishly. A mysterious black gas started to appear in this area. When the black gas appeared, starlight started to flash mysteriously within 250 meters of the city walls. The area emptied out, and every single soul beast in the area disappeared. Only some of the more powerful ones near the edges were able to escape. Shishing, the Time Doluor, had a space-time silver plate for his martial soul. Not only was he able to control time, but his powers even extended to space itself. He was able to control both time and space, to a certain extent. Only he knew why he was called the Time Doluor. Sometimes one could not believe the titles of Title Doluor. Craftier ones would purposely use their own titles to confuse their opponents. Space-time turbulence. This was the power Shishing had just used. This power enveloped an area with a radius of 250 meters. Even if there was a soul beast every 5 meters, 100 soul beasts would have disappeared from the battlefield in the blink of an eye. Those who were left were at least 10,000-year soul beasts. This attack created a huge opening for them. This happened extremely quickly, and was very strange. It was so jarring that the soul beasts, who were charging forward non-stop, seemed confused by it, and their charge slowed visibly. In the next instant, a ball of red light shot into the air. A huge number of red clouds surged into the sky. A powerful attack was about to be launched. In the skies above the army of soul beasts, Bai Ji the Emerald Swan had an ugly expression on her face. They had grossly underestimated the strength of the humans. 100 years ago, during that beast tide, Shrek City's defenses were much weaker than they were now. In just 100 years, the humans were able to develop so many defenses. They were even able to seal Di Tian. While they did not know how long Di Tian would be sealed, his absence greatly affected the soul beast's morale. Noticing that another title Doluor was about to attack, Bai Ji did not dare to be slow. She opened her jade-green wings, and a shapeless barrier appeared in mid-air. It tried to block the airborne soul skills. Faced with the blockade of red clouds, one's natural response would be to advance skyward. This move was unleashed by someone who was at least a title Doluor. While Bai Ji was powerful, even she had to tread carefully. However, the red clouds had yet to show their offensive prowess. The Zhuge divine crossbow cannons on the city walls roared once more, and a huge amount of cannon shells landed down below. They burst open in the middle of a group of soul beasts. Shishing looked at another old woman far away, and clasped his hands before giving her a thumbs up. The old woman wearing a long red dress smiled faintly. The red clouds in the air floated around, but they showed no sign of attacking. Bai Ji's heart sank. She stretched another hand out, and her healing abilities enveloped the area. However, she felt that her efforts were lackluster. The humans were crafty, indeed. The soul beasts could not match their coordination. This was the most troublesome part. The beast tide had just started, but their losses exceeded their projections and estimates. If this continued, how many more soul beasts would die? However, according to Di Tian's plan, the other powerful soul beasts of the Great Star Do Forest, other than her, could not take part in the assault yet. It was far more important for the core of their fighting force to remain in the Great Star Do Forest. They could not lose them easily. Only after Shrek had been exhausted to a certain extent could they deal them a finishing blow. Even the other members of her kind were not allowed to enter the battle. In general, emerald swans were not powerful. Other than Bai Ji, the other members of her kind lacked the ability to defend themselves. Once they joined the fray, they would become sitting ducks for the powerful students of Shrek Academy. The battle continued, and the advantages and disadvantages of the Great Star Doe Forest became more obvious. Millions of soul beasts lived in the vast forest. There were many of them, and as long as they were at least 10 years old, they were able to fight. In other words, almost every single soul beast was participating in this battle. Instructed by the higher-ranked soul beasts, they had no thought to resist. All they did was charge ahead and attack. The first assault ended after only 6 hours. The plains to the south of Shrek City were heaped with carcasses. These carcasses were brought away by the soul beasts the moment they issued the order to retreat, because they could still serve as food for the other soul beasts. This was the brutal law of the jungle, where one was either predator or prey. To the south of Shrek City, all one could see was destruction and desolation. Entire swathes of land were scorched black. One could see holes in the ground, trenches, and multicolored bloodstains from different soul beasts. It was a horrific scene. However, to Shrek City, this battle was undoubtedly a victory. While there were a few human casualties, most of whom were killed by long-range attacks from the soul beasts, less than 10 humans had died in this battle. Fewer than 100 of them had been injured. On the other hand, they had killed at least 5,000 soul beasts. Those soul beasts who died were killed in a single blow. Almost all of those who were injured were healed by Bai Ji. Without her, the casualties incurred by the soul beast army would have at least doubled. The main problem facing Shrek City was that they lacked manpower, especially soul masters. Among the 3,000 soul masters there, most of them had 3 to 5 soul rings. While they had trained for a long time, they were all quite young, and lacked actual battlefield experience. Perhaps this army of 3,000 soul masters could not be matched by any other human force, as they could even rival the Sun Moon Empire's trump card, the Imperial Soul Engineer Legion. However, they were now facing an endless beast tide. All humans would tire eventually, regardless of whether one was a titled Doluor or an ordinary soul master. After this battle, everyone was physically and emotionally drained. Much of their soul power was spent as well. Shushing ordered all soul masters to rest immediately. The defense of the city was now entrusted to some ordinary soldiers. Who knew when the next beast tide would come? The soul beast army only needed to make some minor adjustments. Perhaps they would return after they had consumed the carcasses of the fallen. The Tang sect's delivery was completed. There were 21 Zhuge divine crossbow cannons in storage, but these were not the custom-made heavy Zhuge divine crossbow cannons on the city walls. While they were slightly weaker, these Class 5 Zhuge divine crossbow cannons were much more agile. During the 6 hours of battle just now, 5 of the 32 Zhuge divine crossbow cannons on the city walls had been put out of action due to overheating. Right now, Hallmaster Xian Ziwen of the Tang sect's Soul Tool Hall, who had rushed over just in time, was repairing them. Bei Bei and the rest had solemn expressions on their faces. Yu Hao was safe, which was excellent news for them. However, what could they do about the beast tide at the gates? No one knew how long Shrek City could resist this beast tide. While they had not incurred many casualties in the battle just now, many of them were exhausted. Hundreds of sealed milk bottles were being used to replenish their soul power. In this situation, even if they wanted to replenish their soul power, they could not recover all their soul power before the next beast tide. As for the shock bombs, which could only be used once, it was even harder to replenish them. Other than the Zhuge divine crossbow cannons, the Tang sect had also provided more than 110 other soul tools of different types. More importantly, the Tang sect had also provided 2,152 stationary soul cannon shells. When the elders of the Sea Gods Pavilion saw this figure, they were all shocked. One had to know that this amount of stationary soul cannon shells would cost an astronomical figure. Where did the Tang sect get its money from? Helpless, Bei Bei could only tell them about how Hu Yuhao and the others robbed the Sun Moon Empire's underground storage facility. The elders of Sea God's Pavilion already knew of how Wang Chua sacrificed herself for Hu Yuhao. The elders did not say anything at first. The Tang sect, with its actions, proved their total support for Shrek City. Furthermore, just when Hu Yuhao was on the brink of death, an emperor beast had sacrificed herself for him. Could he be blamed for it? While he seemed to be the cause of the beast tide, the elders were reasonable people. None of them blamed him for it. However, this made the Tang sect, led by Bei Bei, even more determined to fight to the death for Shrek City. For the Tang sect, for Hu Yuhao, and for Shrek. They were Shrek's 7 monsters. Despite lacking 2, there were still 5 of them. They would defend the honor that rightfully belonged to Shrek. The second assault came a bit later than expected. The soul beasts looked tired, too. They had rested for 4 entire hours. The sky was turning dark, and the sun was setting in the west. Only then did the defenders hear the roars of the beasts as innumerable beasts appeared on the other edge of the plain. The soul beasts were not dumb. The more powerful ones were as intelligent as humans. Fighting at night was more disadvantageous for the humans than fighting during the day, as humans were normally not nocturnal beings. In the day, they would be much more focused. Furthermore, the vision of most humans was lower at night than in the day. On the other hand, many soul beasts were nocturnal creatures. Fighting at night was more advantageous for them. After a round of discussion among the savage beasts of the Great Star Doe Forest, they decided to launch their second attack under cover of darkness. An endless beast tide surged forth once more toward Shrek City, which was akin to a solitary island in the sea. This time, the soul beasts were even more ferocious. The Zhuge divine crossbow cannons boomed once more. Elder Song flew high up in the sky. By relying on her interference, the auxiliary abilities of the Emerald Swan by G diminished greatly, and the soul tools in Shrek City were able to do what they did best. The clash between the two sides was turning red hot. The Soul Masters fought bravely against the Soul Beasts, who were charging toward them crazily. The outside of Shrek City was akin to a meat grinder, continually devouring the lives of Soul Beasts. However, the attack of the Soul Beasts showed signs of improvement. Soul Beasts, which specialized in long-range attacks, were split apart from those who specialized in short-range attacks. The latter charged at the front, and the former supported them from behind as they charged toward the city walls. The Soul Masters in charge of releasing the protective soul barriers were under immense pressure, as their soul power was rapidly depleting. However, even so, with the support of many sealed milk bottles, they were still able to hold their ground. On the city walls, the number of injured auxiliary soldiers increased, too. Under heavily concentrated attacks, the protective soul barriers would falter at times. When an attack landed on the city, one could hear cries of agony, indicating that there were either casualties or fatalities. The battlefield looked even more brilliant at night. Soul skills of many different colors illuminated the dark sky as they flashed and exploded. If one looked down from the heavens, one could see what was akin to an eye-catching fireworks display. Every single burst of light and color meant that lives had been lost, each display of fireworks ultimately leading to blood. War was cruel. This was the case for war between humans, as well as war between humans and soul beasts. To resist the ferocious beast tide, the students of the Inner Courtyard and Title Doluor from Shrek Academy took turns to attack. Only with them contributing could the soul beasts be suppressed. Balls of intense light appeared on top of the city walls non-stop. Every single student of the Inner Courtyard guarded his, or her post tightly, as they did their part in the defense of the city. The intensity of this battle was more than double that of the first. When the beast tide finally receded, dawn broke. The battle had lasted the entire night. It was no longer quiet on the city walls. Moans and cries of pain could be heard everywhere. More than 500 men had been injured or killed. While many of them were just injured, there were at least 100 dead soldiers. Shrek City's city defense army only had around 10,000 men. While this was a casualty figure that was totally acceptable to the soul beasts, Shrek City could not afford so many casualties. Of course, The night of fighting did no good for the soul beasts of the Great Star Do Forest either. They lost more than 20,000 soul beasts, with many 10,000-year soul beasts falling in battle. At night, the light from countless soul rings could be seen very clearly. Together, they formed a peculiar sight, akin to wails of grief from the spirits of the many slain soul beasts. The damage to the Juga divine crossbow cannons was severe, too. 14 of them had overheated and could not be used anymore, 3 of them had blown up, and 6 of them were destroyed by long-range attacks from the soul beasts. These were Class 6 soul tools. Every single of them cost a great deal of money. The soul beasts hated them deeply, and so they had focus-targeted the Juga divine crossbow cannons. More than half of the Juga divine crossbow cannons were damaged. The Class 5 Juga divine crossbow cannons supplied by the Tang sect had to be used. The stationary soul cannon shells played a huge part in the battle at night. Using their long-range attacks, they split up their attacks and helped greatly in suppressing the soul beasts. However, there were now fewer than 2,000 stationary soul cannon shells left, and they could not be replenished instantly. Every single one cost a great deal of money. The look on Xian Ziwen's face, as they were used, said it all. And this was just the first day of the beast tide. The loss of soul tools were not as important as the fatigue experienced by the combatants. While they rested for a few hours in between, no one knew when the next beast tide would come. This short rest was not enough to replenish everyone's strength. After that night of fighting, no matter how well-trained Shrek City's city defense army was, every single of them collapsed to the ground, taking in massive breaths of air the moment the battle ended. They all wanted to fill their lungs with air. They were drained, both in terms of soul power and physical strength. Many of them were completely exhausted. All of the sealed milk bottles were depleted after last night's battle, and had to be recharged before they could be used once more. While they had helped many of the 3,000 soul masters maintain at least half of their soul power, the sealed milk bottles could do nothing for their physical and mental fatigue. All soul masters with 6 rings or more were taking turns to rest. No matter how intense last night's battle was, the title Doluor did not really participate in it. They knew that once they joined the battle and exhausted their soul power to a certain extent, the true powerhouses of the Great Star Do Forest would appear. They could only hold out longer against the beast tide if the title Doluor remained at peak strength. When would reinforcements come? Right now, Shrek City was completely cut off. While the pride of the soul beasts forced them to continue their attacks against the south gate, the soul beast army had in fact surrounded the entire city. The other 3 walls had all come under attacks of differing intensity. News from the outside world could not enter Shrek City, as only the Sun Moon Empire had long-range communication soul tools. Shrek Academy was still researching them. A solitary city could only fight to the death. The civilians and merchants of Shrek City started to play their part too, delivering food and water. The moment the fighting stopped, various types of food were sent to the top of the city walls. Shrek City was extremely rich, and there was more than enough food stored in the city. A few important merchants led everyone in providing free and highly nutritious food to the soldiers on the city walls. Many merchants also sent their caravan guards to the city walls. All soul masters in the city were currently under Shrek City's overall command. They did not do so because they were generous, but for their own survival. A fight between humans and soul beasts was different from a fight between humans and other humans. If the enemy was human, civilians and merchants still had a good chance of survival even if the enemy breached the city walls. However, their enemies were soul beasts. Once the soul beasts breached the city walls, the only possible outcome was a bloodbath and massacre. At this moment, no amount of wealth could rival one's life in importance. The merchants showed no stinginess. As long as their items were helpful, they brought them out and sent them to the city walls. Part 2 end here.